Desde la comunidad mexicana de Hipoacústica Asociación Civil, les damos la bienvenida a nuestra cápsula de disrupción hipoacústica. Me llamo Marbella Moreno, soy hipoacústica con H mayúscula, profunda bilateral y usuaria de auxiliares auditivos. El motivo de esta presente cápsula es para hacer un espacio reflexivo sobre este Día Mundial de Concienciación sobre Accesibilidad. Como parte de la accesibilidad, especialmente cuestiones de comunicación, creemos que las personas con discapacidad auditiva, usuarias de tecnología auditiva, podemos sacar más provecho y conocemos y aplicamos todas las funciones que nos puede brindar. ¿Conocen los bucles magnéticos? Es una función muy poco conocida e implementada en México, así como en el resto de los países de Latinoamérica. Y para ello invitamos a Juliëtte Sterkens. Juliëtte Sterkens es una experta en esos temas de tecnología auditiva. Es una especie de voluntaria en la Asociación de Hearing Loss en Estados Unidos, así como también es originaria de Holanda. Y bueno, ella nos va a platicar muchísimo sobre los bucles magnéticos. La entrevista se la haremos en inglés, por lo que les invitamos a ver el subtitulado en inglés junto con su correspondiente traducción en español. Hi Juliëtte, thank you for being with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, that is good. Please, can you explain how the magnetic loops work?
Well, hearing loops are an assistive listening system that broadcasts audio from a microphone. And it could be a microphone in a church, it could be in a meeting room, or it could be the sound from a television. And when you turn your hearing aid to telecoil or T-coil, it's the coil that we use for hearing on the telephone of the older landline telephones. The hearing loop will send the signal direct into the hearing aid. And what happens is that the sound from the lectern, from the church podium, will go direct into the hearing aid, so you can hear very, very clearly. It's a wireless system, so you only need your hearing aid, a telecoil in the hearing aid, and the facility, be it a meeting room or a church or your TV room, sends that audio right into the hearing aid.
That is interesting because it is very unknown topic about the function. Please, in what type of buildings those are a good accessibility asset?
Now, I'm trying to understand your question
Okay.
exactly, but are you asking how these systems can be installed in buildings? Or where they are installed in buildings?
It is because when in terms of accessibility, how can we manage it in public environment practically?
The real issue is that people don't understand what hearing loss is really all about, right? They think that all you have to do is get a hearing aid or get a cochlear implant, and then the hearing aid will help you hear normally. And you and I both know that that's not the case, right? So it's important to explain to people who are in charge of buildings or meeting rooms that you require more than just the PA system. People with hearing loss require an assistive listening system. Now, there are different assistive listening systems that can be used, but the hearing loop is the only system that sends the audio through a wire that's installed in a building, that the signal from the PA system then goes wirelessly into the hearing aid. So from an accessibility point of view, it's the easiest system to use. But before you can get these systems installed, you, as a group advocating for people who wear hearing aids, need to explain that you need more than just the hearing aids. And that's a long process. That doesn't happen overnight. Even in the United States, where we've had a law for people who are hard of hearing for a very long time, there are still lots of places for whom this is news. They don't really understand what it means to be hearing accessible. Now, we all understand what we need to do for somebody in a wheelchair, right? We need wheelchair ramps for somebody in a wheelchair. We need elevators so you can go from the first story to the second story. That's all logical. We all get that. But just looking at you, we don't know that you need more than just your own hearing aids. And that means, as an organization, starting that conversation that hearing accessibility is needed. I'm not quite sure if I answered your question, but I'm trying.
In fact, is something that I made about the hearing loss, because people generally understand that when you use the hearing aid, you need only the turn in, turn out, turn on, and that is all. But as you can state, you said that all of the people really needs to understand how it does work. And it needs more than a design and implementation.
The implementation is probably the hardest part. It's easy to understand, but it's hard to implement this technology. And on top of that, there are also at the moment new technologies that are being discussed. And yet, those new technologies are going to take time before they will be developed. I think as an organization, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on getting hearing aids in people's ears? People with hearing loss need hearing aids. Or are you already using the hearing aids and now you're wondering, what else can we hear with our hearing aids? Now, there are some really good resources that can be seen on the hearingloss.org website. So www.hearingloss.org/GITHL. Exactly. I'm looking at the captions. And the Get in the Hearing Loop group, we have developed a lot of resources that, of course, are going to be in English, but that might be useful for you as you work to develop a policy in the country, what to do about hearing accessibility. So that may be one place where you could start. And there's another website called hearingloop.org, www.hearingloop.org. And the captions are working beautifully for me. But those are two good websites to go to where you can find more information.
That is a good, excellent resource tip to hear about this because it is very necessary to understand in what type of information we can get about all of the functionality. And now I have other question. In which countries the magnetic loops are more present in accessibility terms?
So the country where the most hearing loops are in use are the United Kingdom and in the Norwegian or the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. But I've also seen a lot of hearing loops in Australia and in the United States. They are happening in states where people speak up. So if a person with hearing loss doesn't complain, but stops going to an event, then nothing changes. But if you have difficulty hearing, for example, in Wisconsin, in a theater, and you complain, then the business owner or the managers can find more information on those two websites that I mentioned. So part of this whole raising awareness is the people with hearing loss speaking up. You know, what most people with hearing loss do, they stop going. You know, they frequently don't go because they say, oh, I know I'm not going to be able to hear. And that's where you as a group need to speak up. And pick a few places where you may find this type of technology could help raise awareness for your cause.
That is correct. In your experience, how can we promote it and implement it in Latin American countries? Because we have not so many resources additional to the information.
No. Are you familiar or do you know if audio companies are installing hearing loops or induction loops in Mexico? Do you know whether they do or don't?
Yes, it is a good starting point. That is great. Very thank you very much, Juliëtte. It was a very good insight about the hearing magnetic loops. Thank you for sharing with us your time and expertise. Y muchas gracias a quienes nos están viendo por su interés en esta cápsula de disrupción hipoacústica. Esperamos les haya gustado, así como de encontrarlo de utilidad para aprovechar mejor tus auxiliares auditivos o implantes. También les pedimos que estén al pendiente en nuestras redes sociales para nuestra siguiente cápsula de disrupción hipoacústica, donde les estaremos brindando ese tipo de contenido con la colaboración de expertos y fuentes oficiales, visibilizando la identidad hipoacústica, nuestros requerimientos y temas afines. Hasta la próxima cápsula.